Imagine this. It's a perfectly normal weekday afternoon. People are at work, checking email between meetings, glancing at their phones every few minutes. Then, a single tweet appears. Urgent. Major global bank on the brink of collapse. Withdraw funds immediately. Within minutes, it's being retweeted thousands of times. Group chats light up. People log into their banking apps. Financial news sites start scrambling to confirm what's going on. The stock price of that bank drops sharply. Investors panic. And then, a little while later, the truth comes out. The bank is fine. There was no crisis. The entire chain reaction started from one false tweet. If you've ever seen something shocking on your feed and felt that jolt of adrenaline, that urge to share it before you even finish reading it, this video is about you and about all of us. Because the scary thing isn't just that false stories exist. It's that, when it comes to spreading them, the data shows something deeply uncomfortable. Lies aren't just competing with truth. In many cases, they're winning. Before we dive into how researchers actually proved this, and what it means for every post you see online, take a second to support content that's trying to unpack what's really happening, instead of just adding to the noise. Tap that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss videos like this. It really helps push thoughtful content into a feed that's otherwise dominated by whatever goes viral fastest. Now, let's talk about the paper that pulled back the curtain on the spread of true and false news online. A team of researchers managed to get something incredibly rare, a massive, carefully constructed dataset of rumors spreading on Twitter from the platform's early days in 2006 all the way through 2017. These weren't just random tweets. These were stories and claims that had been investigated and labeled as true, false, or mixed by professional fact-checkers from well-known organizations. These teams go through claims and categorize them based on evidence, and they agree with each other at very high rates, which means the researchers weren't just guessing which stories were true. They had a reliable map of truth and falsehood across a huge slice of Twitter's history. In total, they analyzed around 126,000 different rumor cascades. Think of a rumor cascade as the entire family tree of retweets that sprout from one original tweet. You start with a single user posting a claim. Someone retweets it. Someone retweets that retweet. And on and on. The resulting structure stretches across the network like a branching tree. These cascades involved roughly 3 million people and more than 4.5 million shares. It's not a tiny sample. It's a decade-long X-ray of how information really flows through one of the world's most influential platforms. To understand what was happening inside these cascades, the researchers measured several things. First, they looked at depth. How many hops away from the original tweet a rumor traveled? If user A tweets something, user B retweets it, user C retweets B, and so on, each step outwards adds to the depth. Second, they looked at size. How many people in total participated in that rumor cascade? Third, they examined maximum breadth, the largest number of people at any single layer of the cascade. Imagine looking at the widest part of the tree and counting all the branches there. Finally, they measured something called structural virality, which tells you whether a rumor spread like a simple broadcast from one popular account to many people directly, or like a chain reaction where it's passed from person to person through multiple generations of sharing. Then came the big comparison. How do the maps of true rumors differ from the maps of false rumors? The answer was stunning. False stories didn't just win by a small margin, they blew truth out of the water on almost every measure that matters. False rumors reached more people. True stories rarely spread to more than 1,000 people. But the top 1% of false stories routinely reached between 1,000 and 100,000 people. That means if you pick a random true story and a random highly viral false story, the false one is far more likely to have exploded across the platform. False rumors also traveled deeper. True stories tended to burn out within a limited number of retweet layers. They'd go a few hops away from the original source and then die down. False rumors kept going. Some cascades reached depths of 10, 15, even 19 hops away from where they started. Imagine seeing a tweet in your feed that is the result of a long chain of people passing it along, and by the time it reaches you, it's many steps removed from the person who first said it. That's what these deep cascades look like. And they weren't just larger and deeper, they were faster. When the researchers plotted how long it took true and false stories to reach certain thresholds, like a given number of people or a certain depth, they saw that false stories raced ahead every time. False news reached 1,500 people about 6 times faster than truthful stories did. To reach a depth of 10, false stories got there around 20 times faster than the truth. It's not even a close race. Lies sprint. Truth jogs. Now, at this point you might be thinking, okay, maybe that's because the people spreading false news are big influencers. Maybe they're celebrities, politicians, or major media accounts with massive audiences, and that's why their posts travel farther. That's a reasonable guess, but the data says something completely different. The researchers compared the people who spread false news with the people who spread true news. They looked at how many followers they had, how many people they followed, how often they tweeted, how long their accounts had been around, and whether their accounts were verified. And here's the twist. On almost every metric, the spreaders of false news looked less powerful, not more. They tended to have fewer followers, follow fewer accounts, tweet less often, and were less likely to be verified. These weren't the biggest megaphones on the platform. They were ordinary users. To really nail this down, the researchers built a statistical model to estimate the likelihood that a tweet would be shared based on factors like follower count, account age, and more. Then they added one more variable. Is the tweet's content true or false? Even after controlling for all those other factors, false tweets were about 70% more likely to be retweeted than true ones. That means falseness itself, stripped of everything else, seemed to give tweets a built-in advantage in the attention economy. So why does being false help a tweet spread? Why are we drawn to these stories? One big part of the answer is novelty. Our brains are wired to be on the lookout for new and unexpected information. When we learn something that contradicts what we thought we knew, it forces us to update our mental model of the world. That kind of information is inherently valuable from a decision-making perspective. On a social level, when you share something surprising, you get to be the person who brings the breaking insight to your friends and followers. That social reward system pushes us toward passing along things that feel fresh and unexpected. The researchers wanted to test whether false stories really are more novel than true ones in practice. To do that, they took a random sample of users who had shared both true and false rumors. For each of these users, they collected the tweets they had been exposed to in the 60 days leading up to their decision to retweet a rumor. Then, they used a machine learning technique called topic modeling to analyze what those tweets were about. Each tweet, including the rumor, got broken down into a mixture of topics. Think themes like politics, business, science, entertainment, and so on. Using this representation, they could measure how different the rumor's topic distribution was from the distribution of topics in the user's recent tweet history. The bigger the difference, the more novel the rumor was relative to what that user was used to seeing. Across multiple different mathematical measures, false rumors came out as more novel than true ones. Put more simply, lies tended to introduce themes, angles, or combinations of ideas that people hadn't been exposed to recently. They felt new. That's a big part of why they fly through the network so quickly. But novelty isn't just math, it's emotion. It's that feeling of, wait, what? So the researchers also analyzed how people emotionally responded to true versus false rumors. They gathered replies to rumor tweets and ran them through a lexicon that associates words and hashtags with basic emotions, things like joy, sadness, anger, fear, anticipation, trust, surprise, and disgust. The emotional patterns they uncovered tell another important part of the story. Replies to false rumors contained more language linked to surprise and disgust. Replies to true rumors leaned more heavily toward emotions like sadness, anticipation, joy, and trust. In other words, false stories consistently triggered high arousal emotions that are tightly linked to sharing behavior. This is shocking. This is outrageous. I need to show someone. While true stories were more likely to inspire calmer, reflective, or steady emotions. Now layer on one more factor, topic. When the researchers grouped rumors by category, politics, business, science, urban legends, entertainment, security and conflict, natural disasters, They found that political falsehoods behaved like superspreaders. False political stories went deeper into the network, reached more people, and spread faster than false stories in any other category. At deeper layers of the sharing chain, political misinformation stood out clearly from everything else. That means that in the realm where beliefs are most closely tied to identity, values, and group loyalty, falsehoods are especially potent. At this point, it's tempting to blame everything on bots, automated accounts that churn out misleading content. There's a comforting narrative that says, if we could just eliminate the bots, we'd solve most of the problem. The researchers seriously considered that possibility. They used advanced bot detection algorithms to identify accounts likely to be automated. They reran their analysis after removing those accounts and the retweets they generated. They even tested different bot detection methods and sensitivity settings to ensure the results weren't being distorted by how bots were identified. The outcome was clear. Bots do help content spread faster, both true and false. But the core pattern, false stories consistently outpacing true ones, remained. Bots were not the primary reason lies were winning. Humans were. Our choices, our impulses, our clicks and taps. And that's both the unsettling and empowering part of this entire study. It tells us that the biggest driver of misinformation isn't just technology, it's psychology. It's the intersection between human nature and platforms designed to reward engagement. Our love for the surprising, the dramatic, the emotionally intense gives false stories an advantage. They're engineered, intentionally or not, to press our mental buttons more effectively than sober, carefully verified information. So what does this mean for you, for me, for anyone scrolling through a feed today? First, it means we can't assume that the most engaging, most shared, most talked about stories are the most accurate. If anything, this research suggests the opposite. The more explosive the spread, the more skeptical we should be. If something feels almost too perfectly shocking, too outrageous, it might be wielding falsehood as a feature, not a bug. Second, it means solutions can't be purely technical. Deleting obviously false content and reducing bot activity helps, but it doesn't get to the heart of the problem. The authors point toward behavioral interventions, adding context labels, encouraging users to read articles before sharing them, giving gentle prompts to pause when content has been flagged as disputed, and building systems that reward accuracy and reliability instead of just raw engagement. Small bits of friction at key moments, like a simple, "Are you sure you want to share this? It may be unverified," could help slow the wildfire. Third, it puts responsibility back in our hands. Think about the last time you shared something because it felt unbelievable. Maybe it was a rumor about a public figure, a surprising claim about a company, or a dramatic twist in an ongoing story. How long did you spend checking if it was real? Did you look for confirmation from a trusted source? Or did you ride the wave of emotion straight to the share button? This research shows that humans are more likely to amplify false information than true information, even when they don't intend to cause harm. We're not villains in this story, but we are protagonists. That means we can change the plot. One practical step is to turn that feeling of shock into a trigger for skepticism. When you see something that makes you think, "No way, that can't be real," instead of sharing it instantly, treat that moment as a sign to slow down. Check the source. See if reputable outlets are reporting the same thing. Search for the claim plus the word debunked or fact check. Even a 30-second pause can make a difference in whether a false story goes on to reach thousands more people. False news doesn't just distort online arguments, it shapes what people believe about the world. It affects how we vote, how we invest, how we respond to crises, how we view entire groups of people. A single viral lie can change perceptions in ways that take months or years to untangle. The truth, by comparison, often looks slower, less dramatic, and less emotionally satisfying in the moment. But it's the only thing that actually helps us make good decisions. This paper doesn't just show that falsehood is winning right now, it gives us a roadmap for fighting back, not by trying to shout louder than the lies, but by understanding why they're spreading and changing how we react to them. Awareness is the first step. Intention is the second. If you've made it this far, You're already doing more than most people to understand the information environment you live in. You're learning how the game is played instead of just being a piece on the board. If this video made you think differently about the next surprising post you see online, please help push this message deeper into the algorithm. Hit like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment about a time you discovered something you shared wasn't actually true, or a time you stopped yourself from sharing because something felt off. Your experience might help someone else recognize those crucial warning signs. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay thoughtful, and before you share, make sure the story you're spreading is one you'd be proud to stand behind later. Like, subscribe, and drop a comment below, and I'll see you in the next video.